Hello and welcome to Marketing Speak. I'm your host, Stefan Spencer. I'm very excited to have Michael Bernoff with us today. Michael is a powerful, seasoned speaker with the powerful ability to tap virtually anyone's motivation strategy, unlocking the mysteries to build charisma, influence, persuasion, and connection with others. And he's got a brand new book out called Average Sucks.
It does.
It's great to have you here, Michael. Thanks for joining us.
And Stefan, I'm really excited to be here as well. I was looking forward to this, and I'm excited to see what we can do to share with your world and make this world even better.
Yeah. Now, I got to share with you that, and with our listeners here, how impressed I was with the shock and awe box that you had created, and you presented that at a Genius Network meeting or virtual meeting recently. I was just blown away by it. I've seen some different shock and awe boxes over the years, but yours just takes the cake. If I were to have received that box, I would have been, doing live streams and videos and all sorts of things to tell my fan base about this amazing box. And it's.
Well, I got to mail you one now. I need your address to make sure that happens, right?
It is so cool. It's not just a book. It's not just a book and a T-shirt. It's an experience. It's like, if I had an unboxing YouTube channel, I'd totally dedicate a video to receiving that box. It's so cool.
The craziest thing about it was the company that makes the boxes, they make them for everyone. They make boxes for Costco. They make them for Walmart. They make them for everything. Literally reached out to my wife, and I got to give her full credit for designing the whole thing. She knew the standard we wanted, and she designed it. And the box company said, do you mind if we promote your box and show people how you did this? So the box company that made the box was so impressed how we used their box with the inside cover to the underneath. So it's like everywhere you went in that box, it was telling a story.
So cool. And I also loved how entrepreneurial you are with it. You're like, okay, well, this is getting some traction, so people who want the box, they can pay for it, right?
Yeah.
So you can
we
go
we sold hundreds of boxes, and we don't make a ton of money on the box because after you ship it and get it and make it and everything, it's not meant for that. But people wanted it, so then people started buying it. It's like, oh, you didn't get one, you want to buy one? So I give away. It's like you give your rap stars or whoever it is, or you give your athletes or whatever. You give them your Air Force Ones with their name on it. Oh, you want a pair? You can buy a pair too. So whatever it is. So that was our thinking pattern. We wanted to make an experience, but people that are all in. I mean, our company, Average Sucks, is a brand we have. It's not just a brand, it's a statement for living. And we hit it out of the park with that one. So we're excited.
Yeah. And I imagine people who are paying for the box are still going to wax poetic on social media and on their blogs about the experience of opening the box.
I mean, we did in books. We didn't have any ambition of we're not a book company. I wanted to share my book with my clients, people that love us, and share our message and get it out to the world. I mean, we sent out one text and 2 emails, and we hit what most people can't do in 3 years. We did in 3 days, and we did it by being very strategic and giving it to people we love and care about, who've been there from the vision with us at the beginning, and they would share the box. And then literally pent up demand. I mean, for 17 years, I've been talking about writing a book. I finally wrote it, and then everybody's like, "Where do I get a copy?" So it's really, really fun. And I appreciate you noticing that as a marketer and as a human that cares about cool stuff, noticing the power of it. And I wish I had the box right here. I would just show everybody, but I'd have to go assemble one to show you. But another time.
Yeah. So 17.
You have to buy it.
Well, I'll include a link in the show notes to the page that has the photo of it and the buy button. So yeah.
AverageSucks.com. Real easy. You can go pick it up there.
Okay. So you said 17 years went by where you didn't write a book and you finally wrote one. Why now? What was the impetus?
Yeah, this is interesting. So why it took 17 years, I didn't realize till I was in the process. So I recommend everyone write a book, not even for the sake of, it's like learning a new skill. If you've never written one, you have to get out of your own way. There's a lot of stuff you want to do. The reason it took so long, I didn't recognize, was that like a 9-year-old boy was trying to write the book, meaning that literally somebody with insecurities, someone that wanted to do it himself, prove a point. There was this young kid inside of me that wanted to write the book, not a grown adult that's traveled all over the world helping helping people, but this little boy that wanted to get this book done. And for years I wanted to get it done, but here's the deal. Like I'm not an author, and at least I didn't see myself as one. I'm a speaker. I'm an influencer. I share with people. I do transformational work. Like writing just didn't seem like my thing, right? So I avoided it for years. So one of the biggest reasons I wanted to get it out is the world needed it. Because I don't think, like, let me ask you this. I mean, have you ever had that feeling, Stefan, that you want more, but you ever feel like something's holding you back and you're not sure why you're not doing all that you can? Like there's this invisible barrier. You ever had that feeling before? That feeling when you want to go put a post online, like you almost stop yourself from sending it? You ever done that?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, we all do. So I couldn't figure out what that was. And in the process of writing the book, I realized it was a little something called your average. And it was this feeling you have like, I'm willing to do this, but I'm not willing to do that. So the other reason the book took so long to write is there wasn't a thing out there in the world to reference after. It wasn't like I was writing Think and Grow Rich also, or how to market to guys that sell horses and copy a Dan Kennedy book, right? This was literally something that there was nothing in the world that resembled what I was doing. So I had to make it up and create it as I was going along. So it was a process, and the book to come out in the middle of COVID, that's an interesting concept too. Yeah. It's been an interesting one.
So how did you do with the sales?
Sales are great. I mean, I don't know what's good for book sales or stuff. I mean, they were amazed. The publishing company was like, okay. I said, how are we doing this? So considering you're the pace car, you're doing great. And sales were tremendous. Nobody wanted we sold a lot of digital. I think we sold a few thousand of the digital books that everybody wanted, but everybody wanted the hardback. And the reason why is the way we designed it. It was nice, but most people don't put the extra touchings on a book. Most people don't actually spend the time to not go with what it is. So we built in it a beautiful cover. We built in a few things in the book that most people don't build. So people started using them as almost like a coffee table book for themselves. So people were buying 8 or 10 at a time to put at their chiropractic office because, hey, if you read a book called Average Sucks, then your clients read that, they pay more, they get involved, they stay in longer. I have entire sports teams, coaches of high school kids that are buying it for every member of their team. People I didn't even know that are saying, this is such a great book. I wanted this to give to 50 football players. I think this will be great for them. They need to read it in high school. So it's fascinating what's going on with the book. So sales have been good, and we've just gotten started.
Did you create packages where you could buy 10 or 50 or 100 books at a time?
We were so busy with helping do our other programs during COVID that like we literally put zero effort into this. We sent out 2 emails, we sent out some packages to people, and we sent out a text, and that was literally it. And I got on some podcasts. That was it. That's all we did. So the book has not even begun to surface yet in the world. So it's exciting.
Okay. Well, I think it's such a powerful positioning statement for somebody like a chiropractor to have 8 or 10 copies sitting in their waiting room. Yep. Because that conveys that, hey, I'm not average and you're not average.
Yep. And that's the cool part. So it's written for 2 people. People say, well, Michael, who's it written for? It's written for the guy with an ego that thinks, yeah, I'm better than you, I'm average. And it's also written for people that are basically saying, you know what? I'm not average, and I'm doing better than most, but I'm not getting what it is that I want. So it's for people that don't have what they want, and for people with the ego that say, hey, I'm better than everyone else. So it's written for like both calibers of people. So it's written as a statement for people's lives. It's very fascinating. And how, like, I have the shirts and everything. It's The Average Sucks. And people say they're great marketing tools because if you get stopped in the street, like if you're wearing an Average Sucks shirt at the gym, people are going to come up to you, man, I like that shirt. What do you do? Well, I'm a marketer. Really, what do you do? And the only person that's ever going to come up to you is an entrepreneur or an athlete. That's what we realize. That's who likes Average Sucks. Everyone else avoids it, and they think you're like the plague, and they're not our client. So it's a great prospecting tool.
Yeah. So it's a way to create some polarity and conversation. Yep. It's conversation starter.
Yep.
It's fine to polarize. If you don't polarize people, you're not taking up space in the world. You're just cowering in a corner.
I totally agree. And a lot of times people don't take a position because they're scared. And that's another reason the book was hard to get done. A lot of people aren't willing to get shot at, get laughed at, or anything. So like when you're just doing an event, you go home, a few people liked it. You write a book, you just put it out there in the world, and you don't know. And this is the crazy part about the book. I have this in my products, but when 80 people buy it in a bookstore in India, because we're all over the world. We didn't just do Amazon. We did everywhere. Our books everywhere. I got friends in Denmark that their friends are buying the book. So like my sister's friends are getting it. My daughter's figure skating coach is buying the book. It's like a vulnerability thing. Like, whoa, I'm really out there right now. People can access Michael for $20 or $25. So that's, I think, one of the biggest reasons people don't do a book is they're scared of putting themselves out there. It's fascinating.
So it took you 17 years. You could have done this 10 years
17 years
earlier.
I said I wanted to write a book. I literally got serious about it in 2015. I think that's the honest answer.
Okay.
Maybe.
So what was the thing that made this possible now? Like, did you work with Scribe, or did you?
Yeah. Scribe did the publishing. I actually worked with Tucker directly. That was interesting. Been friends for Tucker and I have been friends now for quite a while, and I highly recommend their company. Overarching, I've had 3 or 4. I've tried everything. Like I had to go because I speak so quickly and I speak so well, and I do 60-hour events where they're 5 days straight, 10, 15 hours a day, no other speaker but me. I never had a content issue. The issue was literally getting it out of my head and organized. So Tucker was tough enough to work with me and make it a reality, but we still weren't getting it over the finish line. And this was the breakthrough moment. See, whenever you go to do things, so the book is called Average Sucks, which is all about getting out of your current average in life. It has nothing to do with being better than others. It's that we all have a way that we do things, and that holds our life up to what we currently do. My average was I was not a writer. My average was I was not an author. My average was a speaker that makes this amount of money doing this thing this way and grows at about this much. That was my average. So here's the big breakthrough I had that wasn't even in the book. The wrong person was writing the book, and meaning that the young boy that was looking to overcome his insecurities writing the book. And then one day I looked in the mirror and asked myself this question: what does a 41-year-old man that has traveled all over the world helping people, that spoke to millions of people, that's part of some of the greatest networks in the world, that's coached hundreds of thousands of people, that's made tens and tens and tens and tens and tens of millions of dollars in sales, that has a great wife, great kids, what can that guy do? And what was amazing is that guy wasn't the one writing the book. It was some immature little startup business guy that was trying to write it that was inside of me. So I literally went to my wife and I said, hey, will you help me with this? And she said, what do you need? I said, will you just like read over this with me? I got it about 90% there. Will you help me just shift and organize a few things? And in 4 days later, the publisher got the book. And the reason why is that I wasn't willing to ask for help, and I was trying to do it myself. Even though Scribe was helping me, I wasn't willing to ask it. So what it did for my relationship with my wife was incredible. It brought us closer together, the book. And what a great timing to have getting it done, because it's the perfect book for people to read during all of this COVID stuff, because people are reevaluating what their life is. And the book is really about designing the life that you really want and designing your new automatic for yourself, not about playing small. So that was the big takeaway, was asking for help and letting the big boy version of me write the book, or big girl, whatever it is. I'm not the big girl, but you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. So the premise of the book isn't about being better than others, like the average of
that's
everybody
the hook.
Around you.
50% of the world with an ego. That's the hook.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But so you sell them what they want or what they think they want, and then you give them what they need. And what they need is to understand that their average sucks.
Yep.
Their view of themselves and what they're willing to tolerate sucks. And they need to up their game. It's kind of like the concept I learned from Tony Robbins of, you got this internal thermostat. If you're willing to accept, plus or minus 5 degrees in either direction, well, that's what your life is going to end up like. But if you set a higher standard, you'll get a better outcome.
You're saying it. So Tony says that for like a sentence or two in one of the old audios. This takes that concept, and I don't even remember even hearing that. It's interesting you bring that up. I'm like, wow, that's a really good recall right there you had. This takes the concept and gets you realize, how did you actually create your average? Like, how did you get this automatic thing you have? And all of us had a moment in our lives. Like, when did you become an entrepreneur? How old were you?
24.
Okay. What did you do prior?
I was a graduate student studying biochemistry.
Got it. And then, so you didn't do that biochemistry thing, did you?
Well, I dropped out. I was studying for a PhD, so no.
Very good. So you got to a point in your life, you said, this is not what I want to do and never again, correct? I don't want to go to school. I want to figure it out. I want to own my own time. I don't want to do this. Yeah. Every one of us gets to a point in our lives we say never again. You and I mentioned Israel a minute ago. Israel's really good at never again. Do you know what I'm saying? They've mastered the art. They build something beautiful. So what happens is, every one of our lives, we say never again. Our clients do it, we do it, but then we don't really think out what our future is going to be. We're like, you know what? I'll never do that again. I'd love to be in charge of my future. I'd love to make $1 million. And then we spend our whole life saying, I don't want that. I do want that. I don't want that. I do want that. We don't actually get all that we want. We just move towards it. Or God forbid you actually get what you want. 10 years go by and you're wondering why you're playing small, because you're operating off a 10-year-old program. So most of us don't realize we get pissed off one day at our significant other. We get pissed off one day at someone we're dating. We say never again. And here we are later in a new relationship. Yeah, we got our never again. We'll never do that again. But we didn't get the relationship of our dreams. We did not get the economics. We did not get what we need. I'll never let my kid treat me that way. So, okay, great. You never let them treat you that way, but you didn't say, I want a great relationship with them. So most people are stuck in an old decision that they made a long time ago, which was a definition of their average, which is their old identity. And they're living an old identity that they don't even recognize. So when you get in the book, it's going to be like, holy crap, I did that to me. How do I change it? And then the next chapters are, how do you change it? What do you do? And it's like, as a parent, it is a necessity. I realized where I screwed up with my 19-year-old, and I also know what I'm doing different with my 8-year-old.
Wow. Cool. Now, you mentioned that you didn't see yourself as a writer or
Nope.
an author. So, and this is interesting. This reminds me of something I learned from Robert Allen. Bob is a prolific author and
Yep.
very successful one. He says there are two types of people, the writer who speaks and the speaker who writes. And it's important that you identify which one of them you are. And I know that I'm a speaker who writes. So if you know that and you want to still write books, then you need to have a system or a team around you
Yep.
that takes your spoken content and turns it into written content. And that's what I've done. And it's worked out great because I didn't try to fit a square peg into a round hole. I don't enjoy writing. Yeah, I'm an author and have 3 books published with a known publisher with O'Reilly,
Awesome.
but it's not something that I enjoy doing. So if I can kind of hack the process, that's I'm all for that. But knowing that about myself was a huge.
And I tried that left and right. My psychology was so wacky. And here's the thing: I do interventions for a living. I just wasn't willing to do one of myself, and I was attacking the wrong thing. And Tucker and I were going after it. It's like, maybe it's this. Maybe you're insecure. Maybe you're scared to put yourself out there. I'm like, no, it's not that. It's not that. Literally, my thing was I was trying to do it myself. That's why I wouldn't let a ghostwriter help me in the past. I hired a guy out of New York, one of the best in the world at one point, that could help me write it. I drove that person nuts. And the reason I drove them nuts is because they couldn't keep up with my identity. My identity was to not let them help me. So, because I was going to do it myself. So that was the interesting thing. So I know the second book, and I already came up with the second title. You're going to love this. You ready for this?
Uh-huh.
How to Market to Yourself. And the reason I came up with that is most people are really great at marketing to others, but we don't market well to ourselves. I was marketing to myself. I was an anti-author. And most people don't market well to other people, but we don't market well to ourselves. So the next book coming out is going to be called How to Market to Yourself and how to actually sell yourself on the life you want. Pretty interesting concept.
That's cool. I hope you have the domain.
I already own it.
Okay, good.
I already own it.
Excellent, because I was going to say before this episode airs, you want to make sure you secure the domain.
I already own it. Yep. I already own it. The IP is already in place.
Awesome. Now, Dan Sullivan has a phrase for somebody who tries to do it all themselves, the rugged individualist, I think.
I got my pen ready to write that down. Go ahead.
Yeah, the rugged individualist, I think, is his phrase.
I love it. I'm going to write that down. Yeah, he's a very talented, very, very talented with his thinking patterns. That guy thinks like a genius.
Yeah, well, he is a genius.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so trying to do everything yourself is pretty much a recipe for, at a minimum, no growth or very little, and a worst case scenario, complete disaster, because you can only do so much yourself, and then you deny your own unique ability because you're trying to do everything at equal levels, and of course you're not wired that way. You're wired to be world-class at something, not at everything.
Yeah. What's interesting, I was at Patrick Gentempo and I were out to dinner. Do you know Patrick from Genius? Great guy. He's like the godfather of the chiropractic industry. And I think he gave me a Marianne Williamson quote. He says, great people don't do great things. Great people surround themselves by people that get great things done, or something like that, or surround themselves in situations where great things get done. And I'm like, wow, that's a really true point. So it's one of the biggest things I'm working on is not about doing great things, but being in situations where great things get done around me and through me, which is really the benefit of all this.
Yeah. So, so you worked with Tucker
Yep.
Max, that is,
Yep.
for those folks who are
Highly
unfamiliar with.
recommend Scribe. Highly recommend them. Highly recommend them.
Yeah, Tucker's amazing. He's such a cool
Yep.
guy, and he's such a funny writer. Yeah, I hope they serve
I never
beer
read
in
the
hell as
original
a.
stuff. I never read the original
Oh my
stuff.
god, hilarious! You
Yeah.
can't stop reading it. It's like driving past a train wreck or something. So you got to work with him directly. Did he do a lot of the ghost writing for you, or did
No,
he
we didn't
help you
really do
just
much
kind of?
ghostwriting. I worked with him and I spoke it out. I spoke it out. I spoke it out. And he put it together. I gave him the ideas. He helped me with organizing a lot of it.
Yeah.
And then between that and then my wife knew like what I actually meant by what I said, so reversing some of it. I would say I got 90% of it out of me, and I could have kept going. You know what I'm saying? We had to get to a stopping point, and it is the really he doesn't really do ghostwriting. They do. You have to give them the ideas, and they take them, massage them, make them work. Because remember, I'm a speaker that writes, as you said. I'm not a writer that speaks.
Yeah, so
And so
so it's still your tone, your voice is coming through in the book, even though you got some help because it was your concepts, it was your words coming out of your mouth and just massaged into something that worked for print.
it's 100% written any way nobody would write a book. It is written in Michael Bernoff. It is written with ADD for an ADD entrepreneur, like I'm sitting next to you, as random as this awesome conversation we're having. It's choppy. It's to the point. It's a Jersey boy. Do you know what that's me? Do you know what I'm saying? It's written straight to the point of a kid from the 80s, a middle class kid that figured out how to get his way out from the 80s. It's written for anyone who you like watching Goonies when you were a kid. Do you know what I'm saying? You've been in a roller coaster. Do you know what I'm saying? It's written for our generation, and they love it. It's really cool.
Yeah, that's great. Now you said ADD. Did you actually get diagnosed?
Of course, I'm a kid of the 80s, man. They got rid of polio for the most part. They needed to sell us something. So they told me how I got diagnosed was great, right? So I'm not paying attention in school. And it's funny, is I have a major psychology background. I one of the best in the world at neurolinguistic programming and different things now. And I'm like, maybe they should have recognized, like, I have a brain that grew up on the radio and then I moved to MTV and Nickelodeon, right? So most people don't recognize. So here's what happened. I wasn't paying attention in school. I was bored. It wasn't my thing. So I went down to a therapist that the school recommended, and they asked like 3 questions. They go, "So, Mr. Bernoff, when people walk by and you're reading, do you look up?" I'm like, "Well, yeah." "Do you ever get distracted?" "Yeah." They're like, "Well, you have ADD." And I'm like, "What?" And they're like, "What does that mean?" They go, "You have a 10% chance that you're going to do well in this world." And I'm like, "Okay, I'll take it." They're like, "You don't get to pick." I'm like, "Too late, I already did." Because I was a wise ass, right? So I'm like, "Too late, I already did." I'm like, "What the hell does it mean, ADD?" They didn't even tell me. So I'm like, a dynamic disorder. Like I couldn't figure out what it was. So now I say, if you're an entrepreneur and you don't have ADD, you should go get it. Because like every wealthy person I know, our whole Genius Network, it's like a room full of ADD. I'm not saying we can't turn it off, but this is the part people don't understand about ADD. ADD, clinically speaking, is attention deficit disorder. But what my belief is, it's hyper focus. It's just you might be focusing on the wrong thing. I may be hyper focused on fixing this one thing. So people with ADD have massive focus, just sometimes on the wrong thing. Like, do you have it yourself? Did they tell you have it?
I never got diagnosed, and I decided to not get diagnosed. I think
Good.
that I have some trouble focusing or trying to focus on too many things at once. But once I'm stuck into something, I can really hyper focus into it, as you said.
Awesome.
I see the concept of ADD as a label that doesn't serve me, so I don't want to have that label. But
That's why I made it a dynamic disorder. I renamed it.
Yeah, well, another renaming of it that I learned from Amy Africa, a friend of mine, is that it's actually you're a spotter, because back in the caveman days, there were hunters and there were gatherers, but there were also this third type, the spotters, who would know that the herd is on the move or that there's a warring tribe that's on their way in. Like, they'd be the first to notice that something is off. So the tribe would need to move to safety. So it kept the tribe alive. Those spotters had a superpower. Didn't take very many of them in the tribe to keep the tribe alive. But having that kind of ability is very useful in entrepreneurship. So I
I love it.
I relate to being a spotter, not to being ADD or unfocused or anything like that.
I love it. And I joke about it all the time. I took medication when I was a kid. I just one day woke up, this is stupid, right? I mean, they put me on, it was the funniest thing in the world. They put me on Ritalin, didn't work, got me Adderall. Then they gave me, I got a dry mouth. They gave me a mepramine they give me something to make my mouth liquefy. Then I can't sleep. And they give me a mepramine. They give me like 9 things trying to solve this. And one day I'm like, what are the other options? So don't do anything, exercise, take calcium, magnesium. And I'm not diagnosing for anybody here. And it's like, I haven't taken anything in 22 years for it. And what's amazing is I'm very highly functioning. When I want to work, you couldn't get me out of my focus. And when I don't want to do anything, I don't do it. And that's me. I've just learned that's who I am.
Well, that's a great way to be in the world, right?
Yeah.
So I learned this in Kabbalah, that desire is the engine that fuels or that drives all of your growth and evolution. So if you don't have the desire to, let's say, build a business or build a family or a nonprofit or whatever, you're not going to do it, or you're not, at least not going to do it well. So work on the desire. You can actually pray for more desire.
Yep. I love it.
Yeah.
That's from the Kabbalah?
Yeah, that's from Kabbalah.
I love it. I study that stuff. You got a lot of great stuff in the old school stuff. It's funny. I was quoting the Talmud the other day. I said to someone, I said, our job is to repair the world, and we got to start with ourselves. And my grandparents pushed that down my throat as a kid, and I didn't recognize. As soon as this whole Corona thing hit, I'm like, this is nuts. Talk about a message that we get in this world. My daughter do you have the American Girl doll phase? You ever go through that in your house?
Yep. Yes.
You've been through it, right? So she gets a little Russian.
I think they
doll,
still
right?
have some in storage.
We have like 19 of them because we had older than younger. And she gets a little doll, and the doll says right around literally February 28th, it's the doll's birthday. And I said to my daughter, oh, it's her birthday. And then they have this big old party at the house. She models my wife and has this big old party for the doll, whatever it is. And she said her grandparents are from Belarus. That's where our family is from as well. And said, one of the things that grandparents taught her was we have to repair the world. And what most people don't recognize, we do it by repairing ourselves. So if we have something that's off inside of ourselves and we fix a piece of us, we make the world better. So as entrepreneurs, as we make ourselves better, listen to this podcast, become better marketers, we can serve and help other people. So one of the greatest gifts, like I'm going to tell you, you're doing a great gift by doing this podcast, because here's entrepreneurs learning how to get over their fears, insecurities, doubts, frustrations, get better. And as they get better, we make the world better. And that's what I'm excited about. So I'm going to dig deep and Kabbalah after this as well, because that's exciting for me.
Yeah. It reminds me of this quote, of course, I'm sure you've heard from from Gandhi, that be the change that you want to see in the world, right?
Yes.
So that's very apropos. But also, I learned this concept of that you change the field around you when you change yourself. I learned this from Donnie Epstein, who's good friends with Tony Robbins and a healer. He was on my other podcast on Get Yourself Optimized. So if you try to change somebody else, you're not going to succeed. But if you try to just change the field around you because you've changed yourself, you can't help but change others. Everybody who's in the field around you, it's like the pebble that is dropped into the pond. The whole pond is affected. So that's something that I bear in mind every day. Like, how can I be that change agent for others, or that inspiration or the model, whether it be for my kids or my friends or family or whoever, or just people who follow me on social media.
Exactly. And that's the part that we got to figure out how to do. And that's what this is all about. So it's like, here's when I talk about this whole average sucks thing, and I'll rewind it to what you just said, which is really interesting, is that most people don't recognize that we're okay with who we are unless you're not. So if you're thrilled with where you're at in your life and everything's great, that's fantastic. But we've got to have a conversation with our future self. It's like, are we going to be okay with who we are now in 5 years? Because you're destined to be who you are in the next 5 years unless we do things differently. We don't have to drastically do things differently, but we definitely have to do things more effective than we are. So the question is really evaluating where you're really at, and does that work for you? And is this going to serve the people around you in the biggest way? So when you asked me, this is where the ADD kicks in. You asked me about 20, 30 minutes ago, like, what made me do this now? It became necessary. I got to a point where I looked at my kids. I'm like, if I don't do this, what kind of example am I? I'm just basically telling them to talk about doing things that you're going to do and avoid them. So I was hiding behind my successes, and I've been very successful. I'm sitting in a couple $1 million building I own. We bought what used to be a temple. It's now a building. We own the building. It's an event space that we own, which is awesome. We do events out of. And we hide behind our successes. And that's one of the things as entrepreneurs we do. And we don't get the life we want because people can't help us because we act like we're doing better than we are. So I'm doing well, but I'm not doing as well as I can. And that is the hardest thing to accept, is that you're not as far along as you think you can be. So that ego has got to go down and go, you know what? I'm not doing as well as I could be. What else do I need to grow, or who else can help me? And that's a big part of the book, is getting you to realize that it's okay that you're not where you're supposed to be yet. It's okay that you're not good enough yet, but you are good enough inside. And imagine how good you could be if you actually lived your full life. What you could do. Wouldn't have to look up to Michael Jordan. Wouldn't have to look up to Wayne Gretzky. You'd be looking up to yourself if you actually played full version you.
Yeah. So speaking of that future self version of
Yep.
you, the potential you, do you have conversations with this future version of you? Do you do visualization exercise? Like, how do you get in touch with future Michael so that you can be fair and magnanimous and thoughtful and so forth to that future you?
Yep. Yeah, I don't have to do any crazy exercises. I mean, I had to do all kinds of really cool voodoo stuff. Like I do crazy intervention where I've done stuff. Joe's seen me do stuff. Like I do crazy intervention work where I help people with major tragedies and issues and reframing and deframing and all that stuff. This is simpler than that. This is literally, we all have a gut feeling if we know who we are. And you've just got to ask yourself this magic question: are you where you want to be in your life? And if you're not, you got to ask yourself, where do you really want to be? And what is it you're capable of doing? And also the real question is, what cost are you willing to pay? And are you willing to pay the cost? Because a lot of people are not willing to pay the cost of a great marriage, because there is going to be carnage. There's going to be destruction. There's going to be tough conversations you need to get had. Old identities are going to have to die. Things are going to have to happen. And a lot of people, oh, that's violent, Michael. Can't we just all have love? You can, but in order to become the person you want to be, you got to kill off an old version of yourself. We all have to recognize, like, you can't let both live. It's impossible. And the reason why I'm saying that, it's not a violent thing. It's like you got to feed the right version of yourself. So what I ask myself a question is not a difficult one, is that, what do you really want for your life? And is what you're doing now enough long term? If it's not, what would you like to be doing? And it's not a complicated thing. If you listen for the answers, you know what it is. And a lot of times, Stefan, it's very minor. It's like, I want to make a bigger difference. Fantastic. That's it. I don't know what that means, but we're going to put that out there, and that's going to go in the cards. That's going to go into the programming. I want to make more of a difference. And you'd be amazed what shows up for you in days, weeks, and months ahead. But most of us have the wrong programming. They want one day to do that versus setting it out there for themselves. So like, sometimes a marketer is like, I just want to get $100,000 a year. Fantastic. I want to get $100,000 a month. I want to make $1 million a year. You and I have all said that. You and I both have said, I want to make 6 figures, then $250,000, then $1 million, blah, blah, blah. We've all said that, right? But then the real question is that going to be enough when you get there? Once you get there, then what? And that's really the question. Once you get it, then what? Once you get there, then what? That's a very important question. Then what? Once you get there, then what? It's thinking past the wall. One of the concepts I talk about in the book is called, we have a box. And the box is a box formula. I did a talk on this at Genius Network. And the box is what your average is contained in. It's what you don't want, what you do want, your identity and your relationships in your life. So we've all formulated a way that we live. And here's the question: are you willing to adjust a few of those things? Are the people you have in your life the ones you need to get where you want to go? Is your current identity the belief system you have? Is the thing you want really what you want? So this is how I play with this with people. And it's very easy to understand that 15-year-olds are reading the book as well as 75-year-olds, and they're getting the same results.
Yeah. Well, it's very meta. Like, you're thinking about your thinking. You're thinking about, or you're aware of your awareness. You're saying to yourself, like, what happens if I achieve this big, hairy, audacious goal? Then where do I go from there? As if you've already achieved it, so that you can see past it and realize that actually that wasn't a very good goal in the first place, because I'm chasing after something that's not very substantial.
Yeah, I mean, it's like reverse future pacing. It's seeing it backwards as though you already did it by seeing it in advance. And this is the part most people don't recognize. And it's sales technique on yourself. This is where how to market to yourself is so important, is because it's a sales technique on you. After you use our product, what happens next? This is the thing. You take it a step deeper. You take it a step deeper. And if we keep on taking things a step deeper, that's where we find the real gold in life.
Yeah. Now, one thing that you said, I didn't kind of resonate with, but there's a variation that I do resonate with. You said kill off the version
Yep, I
that,
saw your face. I knew that
yeah,
didn't exist.
yeah, okay. So,
Yeah.
but then I thought, okay, well, what if you're exchanging versions? Because I learned that concept again from Donnie Epstein, that in the multiverse there are different versions
Yep.
of ourselves, and there's a version that is more kind and helpful or successful or whatever, right? And we could just exchange versions with that version. We're not killing somebody off. We're just swapping versions with another version of ourselves in the multiverse, and I really like that. So
The
I
multiverse is good. I saw the what is it? The High Castle, Man in the High Castle. Have you seen it?
I
The
haven't seen it,
show.
but I know the
So
premise. Yeah.
the fourth series is really into the multiverse, and what's interesting about it is the reason I use that it's very definitive and people can understand very quickly killing something off, and which means that not allowing it to live at the level that it currently does, we're feeding it. And you got to ask your question: is that what you want to feed? It's not a negative thing. It's you've just got to ask yourself, what do you want to do with it? It's a little more marketing term, put it that way.
Yeah, yeah. No, that makes sense. Yep. Now, you said you have a lot of experience doing interventions and
Yes.
helping people to break through,
Yep.
transform. So, could you give us an example of, or maybe a couple of examples of these kinds of
I
interventions and
mean,
what kind
pick
of
pick
outcomes?
pick an area of life. I mean, it's like I talk about this one a lot. I'm speaking at Glenn Ledwell's thing this weekend. I don't know if you know Glenn from Mind Movies. He had a massive fear of public speaking for 40 something years of his life. 35 minutes later, no problem, and he's speaking at Underground 2 weeks later at Yannick's thing, like literally debilitated by it. I help people that have had major abuse issues. I probably helped about 2,000 people get off narcotics, get off alcohol, drugs, Adderall, Ritalin, different types of things. People come to me periodically where they were raped, abused, problems, pro golfers that are getting in their own way, where they just can't get out of a space they're in. I work with UFC fighters 15 minutes before they go in the ring. I'm the last voice they hear. So I've got a lot of really, really cool stuff we work with. And the majority of it comes down to how we store information inside of our head. This is my NLP background. I invented something called human interaction technology. And really what it is how we code and hold information, our memories, our thoughts, our feelings inside of our head. And the majority of us, something will happen. You get raped, you get abused, you get beat up, you get picked on one time or 10 times, and you do it to yourself 10,000 times a day for the rest of your life. So what I have found is, if you can change the association inside of the brain, everything changes immediately. So by changing the label, by changing a meaning, by changing the psychology, by changing the ability to how you see what happened is very interesting. Like I have people that come to my event, and if I say to them like that they had tragedy, they had an awful thing happen to them, maybe abuse or something, and you'll hear the name of the person. Remember this one lady, Butchie was this man that harmed her, and she said it and she cringed. Within about 10 minutes of working with her, I said Butchie, and I started calling her Butchie. I even changed her name badge to Butchie and thought it was hilarious the rest of the weekend. So I changed the perception of what happened so it couldn't bother her anymore. And it's the extreme stuff, but it's also little stuff too. Like a lot of times we need an intervention with our food. Like I talked about it at Genius, and I said one of the things people can do is they can change the label on their food instead of calling it food, which is one term for all things. Like marketing is one word for 80 million functions, right? It's not all marketing. Marketing is a label for texting, for email, for connection, for like, there's a million things that marketing is. When you break it down, you can work with it differently. So how I've helped thousands of people lose weight is literally talking to their food and realizing food is a relationship. And if they change the relationship and stop, instead of calling all things food, nutrition, entertainment, and addiction, and recognize breaking it into categories, getting to know it. What's your name? Where you're from? What are your intentions with me? As silly as that is, for 3 seconds prior, you get an awareness of your food, and that awareness, you intervene by instead of just shoveling things in your mouth. And that is responsible, I would say, for hundreds of thousands of pounds falling off our clients over the years. And it's that simple. They don't even change their diet. They just change their awareness and their association with food.
Wow.
That's a lot of stuff at once. I do really cool stuff. You'll have to see it one day. It's fascinating. I saw Richard Bandler years ago. I'm like, how long does it take you to do a phobia cure? It takes 20 minutes. I'll do it in 5. I got real obsessed, and I like to do these things very, very quickly. So I take people that have major trauma, and 5 minutes later, if they're willing, it's gone.
Really? Okay. So somebody who
Throw it
has,
at me
let's
if you
say,
got it. Throw it at me. This is
okay,
not
well,
a
this isn't me. This is one of my family.
George Glass. That's what we always said in the Brady Bunch. It's the person. Yes, George Glass. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So somebody in my family has fear of flying,
Mhm.
and she will not go on trips. Like I'll invite her to come on an amazing trip, like to Egypt, for
Yep.
example. That's one of my daughters. So two of my daughters came to Egypt, and one didn't. We had an incredible time seeing the tombs and the pyramids and all this sort of stuff, and she missed out because she was too scared to be on an airplane.
Has she
So
been in an airplane before?
yeah, yeah,
Did she have
and
bad experience?
she did have a bad experience.
Okay. So anytime you've had a bad experience before, what happens is then you associate it with the next time you're going to do it. So the word airplane, did the plane almost crash?
No, but it was scary for her.
Turbulent?
Yeah.
So she lost control, correct? At that,
Well, she felt like she was going to die or something, but it wasn't. It wasn't a real emergency.
okay. So she wound up being fine. She associated with someone else. She said that day, she changed her average that day, basically said, I'll never fly again, correct? And built it in her head. Remember the thing I talked about changing her average? Her average is a person that doesn't fly. So one day she said, never again. What do I want to do instead? I don't know. Didn't even think it through. She didn't realize that you were going to want to go to Egypt when she originally said no flying anymore, did she? She didn't know you were going to offer that down the road, did she? How old was she when this challenge happened?
5 years ago, 6, something like that.
Okay. So 6 years ago, she had a challenge. She said never again, and she meant it. So if she wanted to get over it, if she wanted to change, it sounds like she's dealing with a irrational, emotional phobia. Basically, I'd call it. It's no reason to have it. She's never really been involved with a plane crash. And odds are in her head, she pictures in first person her having this happen. So if I asked her to explain it to me, the first thing I would do is do what's called a disassociation. And I would actually have her see the perspective from somewhere else on the plane or look at it differently. And by changing the association of what happened, you change the memory. So anytime you pull a file, it's like going to my bookshelf and pulling a file out or pulling something out of a file cabinet. You dent it, you touch it, you change it, you taint it. So anytime I pull the file, she has one file that's attached to a few other things. I would pull it out. I'd have a conversation with her about it. She would tell me what happened. I'd create confusion. I would then take that same thing that happened. I'd rearrange it a little bit, have her see it differently. And by diluting the emotional attachment, you increase the possibility to change. So I've done that a lot physically. Unfortunately, I've had to sit next to that person before on the plane. God's always sends me people to sit next to that I got to heal and help them with that stuff. So I've dealt with that one probably about 500 times. And literally probably 100 times I've sat next to that person at one point in a plane having the phobia, the issue. I don't know why it happens. They sit next to me, but I fly a lot. And also people come to me all the time for that. So if they really want to change, that's a 30-minute to an hour thing. They will not like flying afterwards. They'll just be able to do it. Okay. Because I don't like flying either. Jimmy, do
I'm
you like
sold.
flying?
I want to have you help her.
Yeah. Where does she live?
In Southern California.
If she's serious about it, it's something I can do. And I've done it multitudes of times. And for someone ingenious as well, I actually helped him get in the lobby downstairs. I got him over that whole thing. Somebody we both know.
Okay. Amazing. Super cool. Okay. So it was a little bit of a digression, but I think it's important for...
Maybe not. I don't know. It gives you a backstory of Michael.
Yeah. I think it's important, though, for folks to realize that they can shift their identity, their view of the world and of themselves, and it's all malleable. It's all opportunity. Yep.
Every bit of it. You have the ability. Everything is controlled by communication. One of the beliefs we have is that communication is the most underdeveloped and underutilized asset that we have as human beings. And most people don't own their communication. You don't realize the first place I look is communication. Before you pull a gun, we need to communicate. Before you are going to get angry. Anger is a form of everything in the world is a form of communication. Everything, anything. Making money is a form of communication. Running a business is a form of communication. Talking to somebody, sleeping is a form of communication. Everything we do is communication. But most people are not educated in that area. So if you have a phobia is a form of a communication. It's fascinating.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, so I'm curious. We only have a few minutes left here.
Sure.
What are some of your favorite books, tools, resources, online courses, whatever you want to share that are incredible.
Yeah. I'd say if you're talking about our material, I went over. I'm obsessive. I own about 5,000 books, so I found the best of the best, and I built my own stuff out of stuff that I learned over the years. So definitely get Average Sucks. Everybody will love it. You'll thank me for it. Easy read. You'll get it done in 3 hours. Easiest read in your life, and it's a real physical book. It's not like a toilet paper book that people make. That's a real physical book that people are going to love. Number two is if you want to take a peek at yourself and see what you're capable of, nobody's too good for this. For years, we've been doing something called Call to Action. It's 5 days. You spend 5 days with me. I came out of digital retirement during COVID because what else am I going to do with myself? I said to my wife, I said, we could either not work for 10 years because I built a life that I literally wouldn't have to change my lifestyle for the next 10 years. When 08 and 09 hit, I said never again, and literally built a life that I don't have to do anything for a decade if I don't want to. So we said, hey, why don't we just help some people? So we built a program that anybody here listening could take. It is not on Zoom. It is on the phone. It's old school. It's audio because autographic is the fastest one to change. If you could change the voices in your head, everything starts to change. So Zoom is great. I love Zoom. I do stuff in Zoom, but this program is designed to change the auto programs you have inside of your brain. It's 5 days kicking your butt, holding your hand, and really seeing what you're capable of. And my guarantee is simple. You'll get more done in 5 days than you have in 5 months. And I promise that to everybody. That's a big promise. So you're already a doer. You make things happen. So if you're interested, I put together a website, calltoactiontime.com. So it's one of the things I recommend to people. I'm giving away for free right now. If anybody wants it, you could take it. It's calltoactiontime.com. There's nothing else to buy or do. There's no thing attached. Yes, you can take another one of my programs if you want to, but it's all inclusive. And if you just did that, be a huge step in the right direction, but you'll get hooked and you'll want to do other things. So calltoactiontime.com is awesome.
I like that.
If that's what you asked me to tell you. If not, I can recommend other people's stuff too. I mean, I've had a lot of
No, this is great. This is great. I'm actually going to sign up for that. I'm not.
You'll enjoy. And as a marketer, watch how I do what I do. If you can get out of your own way and not think, oh, I'm too cool for this. I have people on it that run companies that do $500 million a year, do $1 billion a year, and then I got a broke person trying to figure out business, all on the same call. Here's the beauty. As a marketer, we've got to learn what makes that person that's financially challenged think. And as a marketer, what does that billionaire think? So I'm giving you access to all the people that you need to understand how to be a better marketer. You get to see how I work with them. You'll become a marketing genius watching me do my thing. I'd love you to take it.
That's super cool. Now, if folks wanted to follow you on social media, work with you, like, did you do private coaching or anything like that?
I do, very selective. I work with people that really mean it. Like, you could do one day with me in the building or do it over the phone. I do some of that. Very selective. I recommend people take that class for free first, calltoactiontime.com. You can also reach out to me, Michael Bernoff. If you can't find me, you can't hire me. Does that make sense? So I say, if you can't spell it, figure it out. Bernoff should be in the show notes, right? But yeah, if you want to reach out, I'd love to work with you. But if you really, I mean, I work with people. I rewrite their entire pitches sometimes in 6 hours and turn it into millions of dollars for them. I do that all the time if that's what they want. But more importantly, I love people to go through our programs and make a difference in their lives.
Awesome. And you have michaelbernoff.com as well?
I own michaelbernoff.com. You could check out michaelbernoff.com. Go to calltoaction.com, go to Average Sucks, get the book, check out michaelbernoff.com, do whatever you like, catch me online, see what we're up to, and then try to prove me wrong that I can't help you get what you want. I always make that as a strategy. You show up, you'll get the transformation. I can guarantee you that.
Yeah, that's a great call to action, because people who are high D and dominance in the disc profile, which would probably be a lot of our listeners.
Yep.
They don't like to be told what to do, but they love to be challenged. So I love the challenge.
I grew up going to, I'm reading a book right now by the guy that started a park I went to when I was a kid called Action Park. If you're from Jersey, you know what it is. Most dangerous place you could ever go in the world. And the guy said, I want people to be in charge of their own violence on themselves and whether they want to get hurt or not. Most people, you go to ride, they put a strap on. It was the busiest water park in the world for 20 years. Now, it had a lot of nicknames like Class Action Park, but the point is, the reason it was so great is people were in charge of their own destiny. So here's the deal. I'll help you get whatever you want. You just got to decide whether you're going to show up and be there. If you're not, it won't work for you. That's what I say.
It's a great call to action.
That's how we do it.
Thank you, Michael. This was fabulous. And listener, please take some action now. Go sign up for calltoactiontime.com and take Michael up on his amazing offer. Thank you again, Michael. Catch you, listener, on our next episode. In the
Appreciate
meantime,
it,
have a
Stefan.
great week.
Awesome, everybody. Thank you very much for having me on.